Hi. Afghanistan is a nation that has become synonymous with unbreakable resolve and the graveyard of empires. Throughout the centuries, this land has witnessed the rise and fall of three superpowers, each seeking to exert its dominance. In this video, I will give a brief explanation of these three invasions. In the 19th century, Imperial Russia was looking to exert its influence in Central Asia and was rapidly expanding its territory. Russia was facing the problem of accessing the sea all year long, as its coastline was unusable for 6 months every year due to intense snow. To counter this problem, Russia was looking the sea access through the southern part of Asia. Due to these reasons, Britishers were worried that Russia might attack British India. This intense geopolitical rivalry between the British Empire and the Russian Empire is known as the Great Game. Afghanistan's strategic location, situated between British-controlled India and the expanding Russian Empire, made it a critical battleground for influence and control. The British viewed Afghanistan as a potential buffer state to act as a protective barrier between British India and Russian territories in Central Asia. By having a friendly government in Kabul, they hoped to create a defensive buffer against potential Russian encroachments. However, the friendly approach didn't work in the British favor, so they sought to establish a British pro-government in Afghanistan. The First Anglo Afghan War broke out in 1839, and Britishers bribed all the tribes in Afghanistan to have their support. British captured Kabul and placed their puppet king on the throne. Afghan tribes didn't like foreign influence on the government, and insurgency broke out. Britishers, overwhelmed by this, tried to withdraw its soldiers from Kabul. However, all 4,500 troops were killed on their way out by these tribes. This led to unrest in Britain, and they recaptured Kabul in 1842. But this time, they withdrew their troops immediately after their success and left Afghanistan under Dost Muhammad. In 1875, Russian influence was growing in Afghanistan. The Viceroy of British India, Lord Lytton, didn't like it and sent a diplomatic mission to Kabul which wasn't allowed to enter Afghanistan. But a diplomatic mission sent by Russia was allowed to enter, which led to Second Anglo Afghan War. And Britishers this time set up a ruler who handed over the foreign relations of Afghanistan to Britishers. This British triumph was short-lived, and a British envoy was murdered in 1879. Britishers sent their army again to establish a new ruler and took away the sovereignty of Afghanistan. After World War I, Afghan tribes saw this as an opportunity to free themselves from the British influence, as they had become weak after the war. Third Anglo-Afghan War started in 1919. Fighting was between an ineffective Afghan army and exhausted British army. Britishers won this one strategically by bombing Afghanistan from airplanes. However, Afghanistan won independence in this war. Afghans concluded a treaty of friendship with the new Bolshevik regime in the Soviet Union and recognized the Soviet government, and a special relationship evolved between the two governments that lasted until December 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. In 1979, Afghanistan President Hafizullah Amin assumed power and started to make radical changes in Afghanistan. This led to rise of Mujahideen, a collection of resistance groups that were actively engaged in armed conflict against the Afghan government. Afghan army wasn't able to fight this insurgency, and Soviet had to intervene. Soviet Secretary General Leonid Brezhnev feared that such radical changes in Afghanistan might spreading feeling of independence in resource-rich Soviet-controlled Muslim provinces. USSR invaded Afghanistan and easily reached Kabul to remove Mujahideen from the capital. Afghanistan President Amin moved to the countryside days before invasion, as USSR told him that would be a safer place for him. Amin had full trust in USSR, and he even thought that invasion is just to remove militant groups. But USSR also killed him, as he was useless to them due to his weak leadership, and USSR established a puppet government. However, most of Afghanistan was under rebel groups' control, so USSR sought to eliminate them by indirectly supporting Afghan army. But Afghan army wasn't capable of fighting these militants, and also morale was low among them, unlike Mujahideen. This militant group was also getting external support from USA, European countries, and many more. USSR had to take the lead and send its army. As we all know, Afghanistan terrains make it difficult for foreign invaders to mobilize their troops and give advantage to local militants. This can be explained from the Battle of Panjshir Valley. Transportation was difficult in this valley, so militant groups attacked Soviet supply convoys and reiterate in the mountains. This made it difficult for Soviets to fight for long. Soviets did manage to capture this area, but Mujahideen always took it back from Afghan army whenever Soviet withdrew its army. War was becoming unpopular in USSR as it was putting a heavy burden on the nation, and civilians of Afghanistan were joining Mujahideen to drive out intruders. Soviets had enough of militant groups retaking post after USSR soldiers withdrew. In 1988, Geneva Accords were signed by USSR and Afghanistan, and Soviets withdrew their troops after 19 years of war. Then, in 2001, USA invaded Afghanistan, and another 20-year-long war started. USA's primary reason of invasion was to destroy al-Qaeda and capture Osama bin Laden. USA tried to negotiate with Afghanistan to extradite Osama to USA, but Taliban denied it. So USA sought to end Taliban rule and create a democratic government in Afghanistan. Not only USA, but some NATO nation, including UK and Germany, also sent their military in Afghanistan to support USA. This coalition force tasted great success, and they managed to eliminate Taliban from Kabul in short period. The process of transitioning Afghanistan to a democratic government also started. But this invasion also faced similar issues that USSR faced. US forces found it difficult to increase influence of new Afghan government and get support of local people due to language barriers, cultural differences, and nepotism in tribes. In some cases, US intelligence failed to provide accurate information about enemy, resulting in more casualties. After killing bin Laden, USA and its allied nations started to withdraw their troops from Afghanistan, but later had to cancel it because Afghan forces were still incapable of fighting militants on their own. Taliban used the strategy of recapturing the posts again once allied forces had left it to Afghan soldiers. When Donald Trump became president of USA, he sought to negotiate with Taliban to bring peace in Afghanistan. After COVID-19, public mood shifted towards domestic issue and demanded that government must work on domestic problems instead of fighting a war in foreign land. In 2020, Doha Accords were signed, which required USA to withdraw its troops from Afghanistan in exchange for a ceasefire with Taliban. USA completely left Afghanistan in 2021. However, Taliban used this opportunity to capture Kabul and again bring itself to power just like before USA invasion. That's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I will make separate videos on these 3 invasions in detail in the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There will be more informative videos like this in the future, so stay tuned.